bereaved parents will now be given access to their children's social media accounts under data laws announced in the King's Speech.
The Digital Information and Smart Data Bill will enable coroners to access online information when investigating the death of a child. And it means that tech firms could be forced to hand over personal data if a coroner believes social media played a role in the child's death. Well, the new bill will not impact cases where a child's data has already been deleted, because under current privacy laws, companies aren't allowed to store personal data indefinitely.
Ellen Roome's son, Jools, died in 2022. She believes TikTok may have played a part in his death. Can't be sure because the company has not handed over his data. Ellen joins us now.
Morning. Morning.
I always think, Ellen, I'm so sorry for your loss. You have been through a terrible ordeal. I know it's, 2 years ago now. You had hoped, hadn't you, when the inquest took place, that there would be a means by which you could get answers to the questions you are inevitably left with. That's not the case.
Well, when we had the inquest, I didn't know what to expect. As a parent, you turn up and we were sort of thought we would have the answers. And at the time, the coroner didn't rule that it was suicide because they couldn't be certain Jools was in a suicidal mood. And then I wasn't strong enough at that time to challenge it. And then afterwards, I thought, this isn't right. We haven't even looked at his social media. And I didn't expect that when I then approached the companies that I wouldn't be allowed access to that data.
Can I ask just a practical question? So I'm imagining most of the social media he accessed would have been on his phone,
yes,
as most of us do.
I couldn't get into his phone. So I couldn't get into his phone and I didn't know the password. So I contacted TikTok and said, could you reset his password so I could get in? They refused that. We did eventually find out his passcode to get into his phone. His best friend guessed it. But the police never, well, they looked at it manually. So the police forensic system was down, so the detective had to look through it manually at the time. What I now know is that Jools had several accounts, which is apparently quite common for children. I didn't realise that until afterwards. And there are some things that had never been looked at. So I now know Discord apparently has issues. I've never had his data. They only responded to me this week when I said, do I have to get journalists involved to get an answer from you?
Can you explain Discord? What is that?
It's a gaming site. I actually don't, I've never been on it because I can't get into it. But I understand it has had problems with some people. But it's a gaming, and I think I understand that there's a chat function on it. So
yeah, it does have a chat function.
Yeah, so I'm still angling that. But I had a meeting with TikTok, who then said they couldn't release it because of data. They then said they maybe have deleted some of the data. Instagram have released some data, but not all of it. So it's just a minefield. And this new data bill that's come out with the King's Speech is really helpful, but it's still only providing the data to the coroner. So I only can get Julian's data by going to the High Court to have his inquest redone so that the coroner can demand the information, which then will go to the coroner, and then as a person of interest I can request it from the coroner.
Can you bear to do that?
I'm going to do that. But it's hard, you know. Ultimately, I've lost my son, and
this is why I asked the question, because I think, you know, you've pushed so hard so far, and you are going to have to go through everything all over again.
But when I started this, it was about Jools, and I hadn't met some other parents, which we've been on your programme before. There are other parents in the same situation. Thank you, sorry. Hold it together. There are parents in the same situation.
Have a sip of water. And we'll just talk for a moment. Just to clarify for people, the bill we're talking about, this is the Digital Information and Smart Data Bill, which is a new data preservation process that, in theory, coroners can initiate when they decide it's necessary and appropriate to support the investigations into a child's death. Now, that sounds very procedural. Mm-hmm. In practice, do you think it can have an effect?
Well, I think it can for children that have died after the 1st of April. Because Jools' inquest was closed before, it doesn't apply to Jools. So the only way I have to go to the Attorney General, first of all, they have to approve it, then it has to go to the High Court, then the High Court have to approve it. It's palaver. Why can't social media companies just give parents the right to see their data?
What do you think you're going to get from the data that will help clarify I mean, is it to be able to understand where Jools was?
So Jools took his own life, and I don't know why. And that's really hard to just be told you're supposed to accept that and not understand why your child is no longer here. And throughout this, it's now become apparent there's other parents in the same situation. So I'm never going to give up, because this could make a difference to the other parents. And there's a group of us that all want answers, and I'm not stopping.
There's a next stage as well, isn't there? And I know you've worked, you know, you've been in touch with Ian Russell, who's the father of Molly Russell, who took her own life after being bullied on social media. There is a next step, isn't there? In terms of, OK, this is what maybe Jools was seeing. You don't know, we don't know. This is perhaps having an influence. But it comes down to those controls and vulnerable people, young children, being exposed to these things.
Very much so. And the online safety bill is massive, and it's very helpful. I was with Ian and some other parents the other week. We met Peter Carr, Secretary of State, and we did raise the point that there needs to be tighter rules with the online safety bill. And there's potential flaws in it where they don't. For example, AI needs to be covered. They did mention that, I think, in the King's speech. But AI has a lot of benefit for social media and picking out problems with it. But there's also a massive risk for AI and digitally changing photos and that sort of thing. And the online safety bill needs to be strengthened rather than just making Ofcom make rules that things could slip through the net if they're not tightened up a bit more.
And have you at any point had the opportunity face-to-face to talk to any of the companies that you think are responsible for not being forthcoming with information that would help families like yours? Have you ever had that opportunity?
I had a Zoom meeting with TikTok.
Tell me about that.
So the Zoom meeting, they didn't want anybody else present because I think actually the BBC asked to be present at the time. They wouldn't have anybody present. It wasn't particularly helpful. So it was, yes, we'll see what data we can get you. They've never given me anything.
Did you get the impression they understood why you needed it? Or that, you know, there was some moral responsibility for them to...
Personally, I don't think they care. I really don't think they care. You've got parents crying out for information. Now, if that was a morally correct person, wouldn't they just say, let's have the data and hopefully find some answers? And it may be too late for Jools, but there are other people that want answers too.
And just, are they bound by laws, data protection laws?
I don't know. I was actually told by an employee of TikTok who's contacted me privately that they do have the data. Not necessarily about Jools, but they have data that has to have a certain team to release it. I don't know whether that's true. I don't know what to believe, actually.
And we appreciate you telling your story. And
Thank you.
I know it's not easy for you, so thank you very much.
Good luck.
And no doubt you will be involved in discussions in the future, so we'll follow that very closely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.